Welcome back, everyone. This is Cleaning Business Life. I am your host, Shannon Miller. And today we're going to talk about legacy client upgrades, how to raise standards without burning down your business. There seems to be a lot of ick when it comes time to raising rates with legacy clients. These guys have been through with you through thick and thin. Typically they start off with you in the beginning and they are like, oh my God, where did I find this person? Why aren't there more of you? And as you start to grow and scale and realize that you're not making enough money because expanding and growing and scaling costs more money to run, it becomes really uncomfortable. So this episode is not about being greedy. It's not about abandoning people. It's definitely not about blowing up your book of business overnight per se. But this is about legacy client upgrades and why avoiding them quietly erodes your margins, your team, and eventually your leadership. And let's face it can be icky. So let's dive in. And Jamie's out today, so it's going to just be a little more direct, a little more owner level, and honestly, a conversation I see people avoid for years. Jamie just couldn't make it today, so I'm out here flying solo. What are legacy clients? Legacy clients are the ones that you start off with at the beginning. They're your first clients, and you're just like, yes, I got this client. Right. And they're so nice. They're just happy. There's a little bit of idol worship that happens because they're your first clients. You want to do an excellent job. It's just you typically out in the field. There's a lot of things going on. But as you start to grow and scale your business and you want to start earning money and not have to clean forever and ever and ever. And if you do, that's totally fine. Legacy clients should always be raised, regardless of the fact that they'll never be at current market value. But they should always be raised because they should be also adjusted. Everything else goes up in price. Legacy clients still need to have a small bump. It won't be current market value, but it will be a small bump for you. So it will add up. And then eventually what will happen is legacy clients will just fall off your schedule. And legacy clients really aren't bad clients, right? They're usually early adopters. They're your survival clients, right? You're like, yes, I'm going to make it. I'm going to be able to pay my car payment. I'm going to be able to pay my cell bill. I'm going to be able to do these things. And they're usually friends of a friends of a friends. And then you realize that, there are no friends in business. That's a topic for another day. And I'll just do it cheap. I'll just do it cheap for now clients, right? They're the ones who are always shocked. The ones, I'll just do it cheap for now. When you actually go, well, just let you know, you're getting a special deal. You're getting the Shannon deal, right? And you want to make sure that they understand if you're going to give them I'm going to do it for you at this price, but you can't tell anybody. And there's a reason why you can't tell anybody, because what will happen is Susan will go and tell Mary and Sharon and Susan and Virginia, who all live on the same block, that she's getting a fantastic deal. And then they get mad because their house is double the size and they can't figure out why you can't clean their 4,000 square foot house for $120, right? So make sure that you're understanding what legacy clients are. And let's be honest, in reality, they paid the old you. They signed agreements that never existed. Usually it's verbal, right? You never really want to make your legacy clients sign anything as you've, gone to coaching and gone to ISSA or whatever convention is up and coming. I think there's 9 or 10 of them now. There's a lot. When there just used to be one. And we had a small section at the ISSA show. And then they trained your nervous system to tolerate chaos because they were more high maintenance. You didn't know any better. You didn't know what you didn't know what you didn't know, right? And they didn't know. And profitable doesn't always equal loyal. As you see, a lot of people are price reflective, right? You could be with them. I spoke to someone the other day and she'd had these clients for 10 years. Finally, after 10 years, a decade, decided that she was going to give them a small bump, $5, $5 whole dollars, less than a Starbucks. And these people went on vacation every year. They had a new car delivered every year. They sent the kids off to college. I mean, they did all of the life things that everybody else wants to do. It's the American dream, right? But when it came time to paying $5 more an hour biweekly, right? What is that? We know that I can't add when I'm doing this by myself. My little brain just doesn't work that way. It turns off. It goes click. So 5 times 26. So $130 is what they dropped her for after a 10-year relationship. A business relationship. We had to be reminded that, there are no friends in business ever. Your clients are not your friends either. Regardless if you go to baseball games, hang out, have birthday parties, do all the things, there are no friends in business. So, and then being nice doesn't always equivocate being sustainable. And legacy clients are not the enemy, but they are frozen in time forever. They will forever ever be frozen in time, and they'll never catch up to the current price ever. And then there's the emotional core, there's the common avoidance reasons, there's fear of backlash. Ooh, man, the first couple times I did it, I wasn't sure what I was going to get. Fear of mass cancellations. I always talk about that, especially in the price increase bootcamp. You only want to do a couple. If you've never done a price increase ever with your client base, sprinkle them. Do 1 or 2 at a time, see the results, then do 1, 2 more, then see results. Please don't call me and leave me a really bad message because you raised everybody at once and they weren't used to it and they all dropped you at once. I don't want to be responsible for you not having income, right? And then there's guilt. There's a lot of guilt. There's mom guilt, there's business owner guilt, there's woman guilt. There's like, oh my God, these guys are my friends. They took me on when no one wanted to take me on. I'm having flashbacks from my days when I charged hourly. I charged $25 an hour. And at the time I was like, yeah, I'm making a lot of money. And that's when I learned to bid flat rate. There's a lot of people pleasing that happens a lot because we want to make everybody happy. We typically don't like conflict. Conflict is disruptive. It eats away at the lining of your stomach. And then there's the scarcity mindset. Well, if they drop me, then I won't get another client. When in actuality, what will happen is another client who is at current market value will slide in, typically at a $50 or $100 more than what you were getting. And you're like, oh, I get it. And then there's trauma from past income dips. Maybe you grew up in a single mom home. Maybe your mom went to college and she was never around, or maybe you got married and things were always tight and you didn't know how to make income stabilize, right? A lot of people I speak to in the industry, this is their first foray into entrepreneurship and let alone being the leader. There can be dips, trauma dips. And then avoiding legacy clients doesn't keep you safe. It delays the reckoning. So if you wait 10 years, or another person I spoke to had been cleaning these same houses for 18 years, didn't clean the cleaning anymore in her house, but sent in actual workers. So she was paying for the privilege of cleaning their home. She had to take on a full-time job to supplement the income that her business was not making. Again, a topic for another podcast. And then it all kind of ties into leadership, right? Your team's going to feel it first because you're constantly like, why did you take 2 extra minutes in that house? Why did you take 5 extra minutes in that house? Or if they're working at teams, the 2 minutes turns into 10 minutes, right? The team of 2 turns into 10 minutes. Or if you're working in triples, that's 15 minutes per house. It starts to add up throughout the day, right? Then burnout increases, and then you have a higher turnover, and then there's less job satisfaction. And after all, these are your golden unicorns, right? And then you personally as a leader, you start resenting your calendar. Oh, God, Mrs. Smith, she's still at $75. Okay, you guys are going to have to hustle it today. And it's not the cleaner's fault you haven't raised the rates, right? It puts undue pressure on your cleaning techs when you go, okay, you're going to have to hustle it. Are you okay with that? And of course they're going to say, yeah, but they're going to be like, gosh, Shannon's crazy. I'm like, there's no way that house is 3,000 square feet. I still can't believe it's $75. Yeah, right? So there's that whole dynamic of that pressure that you inadvertently add onto your team. It's not necessary. And then you avoid looking at your numbers because you know it's a loss leader every time. It comes through every 2 weeks, right? Oh God, this house should be $325. I'm only charging her $75. We could do the math, right? Let's do the math here while we're at it, right? Let's see if we can get the phone to work in the cooperation. Here we go. So if it's $75 and it's supposed to be $325, right? That's $250 you're eating each time you go to that house. So you either need to drop them or you need to raise the rates. Now, if you jump them up from $75 to $150, you're still not going to make any money on the house. So that's a really tough conversation to have with that particular client, where the rest of them will just get a small bump regardless, and they eventually will catch up of some sort, or they'll drop off the schedule. But this person, you either need to pay up, like put up or shut up, basically. They either need to pay what the current market value is, or they need to fall off your schedule because it's not good for business. So you have to kind of bring in your math authority without getting technical. So costs include margin compression, wage stagnation, team churn. That's when your teams are you're constantly turning and burning. If you're constantly turning and burning, there's something wrong with who you're hiring. So look internally there first, then look at your system, and then company culture, and then pay. Unequal service expectations. I just mentioned, hey, can you guys hustle it for me? I'm only getting $75 on this one. It's 3,000 square feet. Who's going to be able to clean that in less than an hour? Nobody, right? And then there's policy inconsistency. So for that $75 house, you allow it to happen, but the other houses where you're making money, it's not so stressful. And then there's inconsistency, and those two people end up being neighbors, and they say, well, Shannon's only making me pay $75. And then Susan calls and goes, well, why am I not paying $75? Right? So it becomes that whole dynamic. And then it becomes decision fatigue because you just don't want to deal with it. Totally get it. Totally been there. You don't want to give yourself decision fatigue. You want to be able to delegate and have this be an automated process. You want the cleaning techs to have their cleaning kits, drive over to the house, clean the house, do a little mini break, drive over to the next house, do the second house if you're doing solos. If you really have a unicorn, maybe they're doing a third house. You just never know. So legacy clients don't just underpay, they overconsume. And I have found that sometimes because you overindulge them, you've set them up for failure. They've gotten all of the sparkle that Shannon has to offer, and then when Susan's in there, she doesn't have time to give all the sparkle because you're not. You've told her you need to get in and out of the house. I'm only getting $75, right? So this is stuff to think about when you start to delegate and get the price increases to happen, and they do overconsume, and they don't understand why they can't have the bed made, and they don't understand why this doesn't happen anymore. They don't understand why that doesn't happen, and why this can't happen, and why you don't want to chat, and all this other stuff. And then examples you can riff on are, then there's, the extra texts, the special favors. Hey, can you let Bobby out? He's got to go potty, and there's no one home, and the pet sitter called out, blah, blah, blah. Or we've never been charged for that. Well, because when they had Shannon was given all the sparkle, right? Susan can't give all the sparkle because you're only getting $75 on the house. So now you're wanting to start to charge. Or I hear a lot of cleaners go, well, you shouldn't nickel and dime everybody. Labor has become so expensive. Charging the right price point, the scope of the job has changed immensely. Like when I was a Mary Maid, we did the floors on hands and knees. That was old school. I would never make anyone do it on hands and knees unless it absolutely needed to be done because you saw something down there or whatever. But I wouldn't expect someone to do a whole kitchen on hands and knees like Mary Maids did. Or they're skipping deposits. So I've had this happen actually last year. I had a legacy client who I had for 8 years. They were moving, and mom wasn't doing so well, and they were going to put her in a home. So mom wasn't paying the bill anymore. It was the daughter, and I didn't take a deposit on this move out cleaning. And guess who took the shaft? And then she tried to nitpick her way through it. I'm like, dude, you walked it and said it was totally fine. So then I had to go to court, and it was ugly. And then it was like, we both live in the same small town, where if I had followed procedure, it wouldn't have been an issue, right? And then there's because they're your legacy clients, they always get away with last minute schedulings. I'm not going to make it today. I'm going out to lunch with Susan. Can we do it next week? Like, you have open availability, and that's actually not the case, right? Your systems can't mature if your client base refuses to. Something to think about. And a legacy upgrade is not a punishment. It's not a surprise. It's not a cash grab, even though I've had people go, I was a nurse and I have a college degree and I never made that much money. But I'm like, you were an employee. There's a big difference. Owner-operator has all these expenses for operating. An employee is just there filling in time. And, when people throw it in my face, well, I had a college degree, I'm like, I have 3. It's just like, give me a break, right? You don't need to rub it in my face about how you're better than I am, because you're not, right? It's a standards alignment, a business maturity checkpoint, and it's a choice for both sides. You could raise the rates, and they could say, you know what, Shannon, this just isn't going to work out anymore. It's not in my budget, or I get it. It's the people who try to shame you because you raised your rates, or how dare you, even though you know that they've had a brand new Corvette delivered every year for the last 10 years. It's all great as long as it doesn't affect the Corvette fund, right? And there's nothing wrong with having a new car every year. I'm just giving that because it's an easy example. So there's types of upgrades. There's pricing adjustments. There's policy alignments. Sometimes if you have someone who's really difficult, who cancels all the time, they actually might never have been a good client, and you're just now realizing it. You can look at your schedule. Out of 26 cleanings, and they rescheduled 14 of them, that's going to tell you that they're monthly and they're paying, a lower rate because monthly is higher, right? Their frequency changes, as I just mentioned, and then their service tier changes, right? So they no longer want, if maybe you offer a premium package, or how many times have we seen the moms group? They're like, well, I want a cleaner to come in and do all the stuff, the stuff that they don't want to do. I want the bathrooms deep cleaned. I want all the baseboards wiped down. I want the vents hand wiped. Like, but that's not regular maintenance. I have to constantly go in the Facebook group and say, this is great, but this is considered just to let everyone know, because there's 35,000 people in this group, those items we can do those items, but those are deep cleaning items. So it would be charged accordingly. And it kind of sets the tone for the rest of the cleaners, right? Because we're all watching. So it comes to a point of like, you're like, well, okay, Shanna's right. I need to increase my prices. So how do you do it without chaos, right? There's a good way of doing it, and then there's a bad way of doing it. And like I said, sprinkle them across. Just do a couple of them at a time. With ours, they automatically know at the end of the year they get a small bump. It's just automatic. Once in a while, we'll hear someone like, "Why did you raise my rate?" I'm like, "I raised it every year in a row for the last 4 years in a row." And they're like, "Oh, okay." So, not all legacy clients are equal. Remember that. You have to decide what your non-negotiables are. So maybe you have one out of the 26 cleans, they canceled 10 or 14 of them. That might be something that screws up your schedule, because if you're starting to be out of the field, that clean tech's not going to get paid for 14 of those visits. They're going to get mad, right? So you're going to have to fill in the spot with someone who's more stable. Communicate once and clearly. Hopefully, you're not having to repeat yourself. There are circumstances when you have older clients, because I have a huge senior base where I am, that you will have to repeat yourself because they're having memory issues. That's a whole different thing. So you have to decide what you're going to deal with and what you're not going to deal with. I'm talking about the regular Joes who don't have memory issues and who aren't listening to what you're saying. So, and then you can offer a window, not a negotiation. Sometimes they'll try to keep the same price and then change out rooms, but they have a hard time because they don't understand that a bathroom takes more time than a bedroom. So you'll have to be very firm on what that scope of that job is. It's called scope creep. And then let adults choose. It's always hurtful when you've been cleaning for someone for over a decade and then they get hostile towards you because you raised it $5. It really speaks volumes on what they actually feel and where you actually were in the ecosystem of their lives, right? So let adults choose. If they don't want it, it's totally okay. If they do want it, it's great, right? And then as you start to bumble along and tweak your numbers a little bit more, eventually they'll just fall off because you're going to have to keep increasing their rates. And there are times where they actually get 2 price increases in a year. When the other president was in office, the economy was different. So every time we had a bump in the economy and they raised the rates, I encouraged everyone to raise their rates because everything kept going up in price. It was crazy. So if someone threatens to leave over an unfair upgrade, they were already misaligned and it's time to say goodbye. And it's totally okay. Just so you know what, I'm really sorry this isn't going to work out. If you ever change your mind, I'm happy to put you back on the schedule. That's all you have to say. Nothing major. We don't need to say hurtful words. We're not in second grade. Clients are not property, even though sometimes we think they are. And then you can kind of figure out where you go from there. Today's episode was brought to you by Clean Freaks University, where we teach cleaning business owners how to stop guessing and start leading with systems. If this conversation has hit a nerve, it's probably because you're past the beginner stage, and that's exactly where the Systems First Cleaning Business Academy is built for. Legacy clients don't define your future, but avoiding them does. And just remember that growth requires discomfort. Respect is built through clarity and firm boundaries. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to make money, and you are allowed to profit. I'm so tired of people saying, well, I can't believe that this is what you make. You make an outrageous amount of money. And they try to shame people into compliance, and that's actually not what's required. When we go into business, somehow or another, everyone thinks that house cleaning is a hobby, and I'm like, just laugh all the way to the bank. It's just the reality of it. Businesses don't fail from upgrades, they fail from avoidance. You don't owe anyone the right to keep you small. Keep on marching on.